Well, okay. Welcome back. This is another episode here of Welcome to Supervision. Today we're going to be looking at the mini mental status exam. And I had done previously a video of it where I was talking and just using a dry erase board, and I wasn't real pleased with that outcome. So I'm changing that format, going to this format, because I think it just does a better product. In any case, we're going to be looking at this as one component to your overall assessment, and you do at intake or the first time you are with a client. So again, welcome to Supervision. You're a Texas-based LPC associate, preferably under me as your supervisor, Robert. And if you're not, then that's okay. This may or may not be of any benefit for you. And sinuses are kicking me right now, so bear with me as I'm trying to talk through this. Okay, so the mini mental status exam history is kind of unique. 30 years old. It began in 1975 when a couple people here identified in the pictures to the left as Marshall and Susan Folstein, and then Paul McHugh. I was able to find them on Google. They were at the time with Johns Hopkins Medical. The whole point of what they were trying to do was come up with a way to rapidly assess cognitive issues, dilemmas, that kind of thing. So as you can see there, they were looking specifically for dementia, Alzheimer's, head injury came on afterwards, and other impairments. Things like stroke, transient ischemic attacks are included. So what exactly is a mental status? Well, simply put, it is a cognitive ability based on simple questions. And like I said, you're going to need to do this assessment pretty much on every initial intake of a new client. You're going to be able to, after you've met them a few times, you won't have to do it as intensely, but this is something we kind of do on a regular basis. So you're going to be asking some simple questions. Who, what, where, when, why? Questions that we've all been taught since elementary school, and frankly, this is not a difficult assessment at all. Okay, so you're at the facility that you work at. Here is your client. Of course, that is Jack Nicholson, and I believe the movie that this one was from was something about Schmidt, if I remember right. Been a while since I've seen it. Excellent movie. Got to say, I love his acting. The hair, that gets me the best. But let's say that's your client, and he is telling you that he is actually this person, the Prince of England, Charles. Well, you know for a fact that it's not him. Something's off. This is really pretty much common sense kind of stuff. When you meet people on the street, the first thing you ask is for a name. You know, hey, how you doing? My name's Robert. You put your hand out, you shake hands. If they respond and say, hi, I am the king of Zimbabwe. Sure you are, buddy. Yeah. You know, I personally have only been near royalty one time in my life, and I never got to touch them. So the likelihood of you ever actually being around royalty, pretty slim pickings. So to meet one at a psychiatric facility or an emergency room, you got to raise a red flag on that. Speaking of which, what other things are involved? Well, location. If you're one of my supervisees, then you're probably working in and around Harris County, Montgomery County, Texas. That would be Houston, Texas, for those that don't know. But if you're talking to someone and they actually tell you that they are at that present moment in time in Hong Kong, you know, somewhere over in that region, Vietnam, Australia, you know, They might even be from South America. Now, if they're telling you they're still there in those areas, then you got a problem. Now, here's a concern you might want to think about with flights the way they have been. It is possible for a person to fly multiple places within a brief amount of time, 36 to 48 hours, and not be fully sure where they're at. They may need a moment to get their composure. Another problem is they might think that it's actually 1999, when in fact they're in the early 2020s. It's currently 2021. We're going into 2022 here pretty soon, and so if you got someone that's bringing up those items, then yeah, another problem there. Other aspect of mental status is what time of day. If you're knowing that it's actually 11 a.m. and they tell you it's 2 p.m. or 6 p.m. or midnight, then there could be a problem. If they tell you it's midnight and there's an open window with the sun up, then yeah, you got bigger problems. So the mini mental status exam is composed of several items. First one being orientation. We're going to look at orientation from the simple viewpoint of the who, what, where, and when. It also consists of registration. Registration is about knowing what things are, certain items. Another aspect that gets looked at would be attention and calculation. Attention to details and then calculation. That one's actually going to be a tough one. We'll see that in a moment. Also, recall and memory, how well their memory works, kind of an important aspect. And language skills, as well as some visual acuity and some dexterity. We'll find though that as counselors, that last one doesn't apply quite as much unless you want to specialize in seniors, Jerry's, and that category. Now the form itself, it's free. You can get it online. It's been around long enough. It's not copywritten. It is totally available for you to use. Just Google it. It'll pull right up. But that's it right there on the right-hand side of your screen. We're going to look at it a little more carefully. So one of the first things you'll notice at the top of it is the patient's name or the client's name. That's actually the first one. That is not scored. That is something we just want to find out. Aspects that are scored though go into the when. So in that first category, you'll see what is the year, the season, the date, the day, and the month. That gives us an idea of if are they oriented to the time period that they're in. The next one is where. Where are they physically located at that moment? What state, what city, what county, what town? If they're in a hospital, do they know the name of the hospital? If they're on a certain floor of the hospital, that kind of thing. Now each one of those is worth 5 points, and like I said, they can be a little tricky to get figured out. Now if you're having to do an assessment inside of an emergency room where a person was brought in under emergency detention order and they're there against their will, they may be a little upset, first of all, but second of all, these may be really skewed, so you want to be careful with that. The aspect of attention. This one here is really kind of interesting. You want to pick out 3 different objects, things that you can remember easily. I personally have always liked to use apple, table, and penny. Now the trick to this one here is you have them repeat it with you at least twice, and that way they can kind of feel like they've got it. You're going to come back to this one in a little bit. Calculation, also known as serial sevens. Now frankly, this one here is extremely difficult. Even for those of us that are actively oriented and doing fine, this one is not an easy one to do. You'll notice on the form it gives you the numbers, 9, and this is counting backwards from 100 by sevens, which is not something we've ever been taught to do. We can do it by 2s, we can do it by 5s, but 7s is not one that we normally would do. So going backwards, we have 93, 86, 79, 72, 65, so on and so forth. If they can do it, they get full point. I mean, it's that simple. If they can't, it's pretty much an all or nothing. However, if they can do a couple, they get a point for each one. They only have to go back 5 layers. And this one's hard to do. And if they can't, there is the alternative of having them spell the word world backwards. Surprisingly enough, that's actually kind of difficult to do for a lot of folks. Recall and memory. So we're going back to those first 3 words of apple, table, and penny to see if they can remember them. Here again, each one is worth a point. And oddly enough, I have run into cases where it only been a few minutes, but they could not remember them, or they could remember one. Registration. Now, registration is a little interesting. In this category, you'd want to do something kind of simple. If you're wearing a wristwatch, you hold it up and say, "What is this?" You point at the wristwatch. Otherwise, you can hold up a pen and say, "Can you identify what this is for me?" If you have other things in hand, you could hold up, a clipboard, a pad of paper, whatever. What you're doing is just sort of seeing, can they identify and properly label what you're holding in your hand. Language and directions. Here's where the test gets a little bit more interesting. One of the things you want to do is have them repeat the sentence, no ifs, ands, or buts. This one here is worth 1 point if they can do it. It's quick and easy. They'll either be able to do it or they won't. The second one is to take a piece of paper in your right hand, fold it in half, put it on the floor. I have had some unique experiences with this one where they could easily take the paper and they have to stop themselves because you tell them right hand, so they have to reach forward with the correct hand, take the paper, fold it in half. The fold does not have to be perfect as long as it's within proximity of being 50-50 split. And then, oddly enough, I've had a lot of folks not want to put it on the floor, especially the older generations. They tend to look at that and say, well, why would you want me to do that? If they can at least gesture like they have done it, I would say that's fine. So, following directions and language skills. The drawing part. Now, another one of the aspects that I just skipped over was to have them write a sentence, or at least make up a sentence, and also for you to have written down, close your eyes, and then have them do what you have written down. That tests not only language skills, but their reading ability as well. The drawing one, kind of interesting. This one's very specific, however. You want them to be able to do that almost exactly the way the image looks. You have them look at it, and then you have them do it on the back of the paper or on another piece of paper altogether. Don't have them do it while they're looking at it, but they have to look at it and then do it. All right, so at what point in time as an LPC are we able to step out of the mini mental? It's actually pretty early. The first half is all you really are going to need for counseling. However, you're going to be asking those questions of who, where, when, attention and recall, and calculation. Those are pretty important for us as counselors. The further you go, more information will be available. Now, if you're in a hospital and you're evaluating a senior for admission, let's say you're working in the admissions office, doing assessments only, you need to do the full form. You need to get it all done, because what you're doing is you're looking for any problems that you need to tell the nursing staff and the doctor about, because we are functioning in a team format in a hospital setting. So you're one component of that full team. You may gather a piece of information that somebody else missed. And all of a sudden, you brought it to the table, they're looking at it, and the doctor's like, oh crap, we didn't see that before. It happens. Trust me, you're a part of the team. Now, yes, you need to do it all in that setting. Also, if you're working at a hospital, let's say you're at a psychiatric facility, and you've already got the chart, the admission's been done, and you're looking at everything, and there is no cognitive issues listed anywhere in that chart, then you probably don't need to do a full mini mental. You can, but probably not as required. Okay, scoring and interpreting of the mini mental exam, really simple. We just add them up. You flip over the page because it's double-sided. I've got one right here. See, it's just like the one you see in the screen. And then on the back side, it has all the other information. So you score them up, you've added them up, and it basically gives you an idea of where they would fall into place. All of the research on this has been done, it's been validated, tested, and retested. This is good stuff. You will notice, however, in one aspect, kind of interesting, right here. In fact, let me, right there. It says some interesting things. So in this situation, let's say you got a client who tested out and they got a 29 out of a possible 30. You'll notice the degree of impairment says questionably significant. Okay, well, what exactly does that mean? Well, it means we don't know. You have to put it in comparison to other aspects, other things of the assessment that you're doing. Day-to-day functioning. Is there something else going on clinically significant but mild that could be affecting? So let's say you were to take the mini mental exam yourself and you came back with a score of a 26. I know for myself, I cannot do the serial sevens, and don't ask me to spell. It's just not a good place for me to go. So I'm going to lose 1 point right there, right off the top. Depending on what time of day it is, I may not be aware of the time itself. I don't wear a watch. Don't like them, never have. So I'm constantly having to look at either my phone, the computer, or the clock I have on the wall when I'm in sessions, simply because I don't like things on my wrist. So there are occasions where people will not get a complete score. However, if you look closer at the bottom with those other ones, more in the down here category, you're going to start noticing, hey, there's something going on there. Those folks may have some other issues, much more than is in your scope of practice. So, some main takeaways that I want you to be able to walk away with from this episode, this session. This is an orientation aspect. What we're doing is we're looking for psychosis here. Names, dates, locations. In individuals that are actively psychotic, they may have them a little bit off, or they may be severely off. Also, I want you to remember, your assessment is really that of a puzzle. You're putting together bits of information in order to get a big picture image. That's an important aspect to remember of any assessment. Any one assessment by itself doesn't mean a whole lot. When you put it together with other pieces of a bigger puzzle, you get to see more of what's actually going on. Also, lastly, the idea that what we're really doing is we're looking for that puzzle piece that's missing. The one aspect of our client situation that just doesn't seem to fit. There's a rub there. We need to look further into it, find out what else is going on. Okay, that is the end of the mini mental status exam training for today. I want you to just keep on keeping on. Remember, breathe, relax. You're going to be learning a whole lot more about just talking to folks and how to accomplish what you need to do. The mini mental status exam is just one component of an overall assessment package. We'll be following up looking at the biopsychosocial. There's also addiction type assessments. There's a lot of different approaches that we can take. So for today, that is it, and look forward to seeing you face to face during our regular session.